The Nebraska Game Forestation and Parks Commission is pleased to present Nebraska Beautiful. In the pictures that follow, we will take you on a little journey to places in our state that are outstanding for their scenic beauty and historical significance. Nebraska is not only a prairie state with vast stretches of rolling hills and broad valleys, it is also a part of the foothills of the Rockies, where majestic bluffs, deep canyons, and imposing tablelands are to be found. It is our earnest hope that you will enjoy these pictures so much you will not only want to see them in reality, but that you will also take with you your friends from other states.
It is well that we should begin and end our little journey through the tree planters state at Nebraska's new state capital. Nebraskans are proud of their capital, and well they should be, for today this edifice is attracting attention throughout the entire world. Conceived by the greatest of American architects, adorned by a sculptor and philosopher without a peer in his respective field, built by a citizenry who believed it best to take substance from their own toils, it stands today as one of the great buildings of modern times. In its major elements, the building consists of a square base, some 437 feet each way, and a 400-foot tower rising in simple, honest dignity from the center of the square. The tower is crowned by Laurie's fine figure of the sower, everlasting symbol of hope and significant reminder of the simple background of those close to the soil against which this noble edifice has been reared. Truly, the building is a real expression of the forward-looking and high ideals of the sons and daughters of the western prairies. On the first lap of our journey taking us to Ponca State Park, let us pause briefly in Thurston County for a view of the Big Muddy, up which Lewis and Clark, pathfinders of the great Northwest, made their way in 1804. Near here stands Blackbird Hill, where lies buried one of the great Indian chiefs of Nebraska's early history. Today, the river is being harnessed by engineers to make it navigable. Ponca State Park lies in Dixon County near Ponca, which is the fourth oldest town in Nebraska. Its lofty oak-covered bluffs overlook the Missouri River and 3 states, Iowa, South Dakota, and Nebraska. Here once the Ponca and Omaha Indians hunted and fought. Here it was that a fair Ponca maiden sent as a herald to Blackbird, the warring Omaha chief, brought peace to her tribe, but tragedy to herself. Here, too, Lewis and Clark camped on their way to the northwest, and trader and trapper lingered to traffic with the red man. Today we find over 200 acres of timbered bluffs set aside for public recreation. Thousands of picnickers from Iowa and Nebraska come here to enjoy the splendid outdoor facilities which have been provided for their use. One of the popular Sunday trips is to leave Sioux City, cross the Missouri over the bridge at South Sioux City, drive to this park, spend the day, then cross the river on the ferry in the park, and return home through South Dakota and Iowa. With the sun bringing an end to a long warm day and twilight to the winding river, it is a scene not soon to be forgotten. The second state park on our trip is that found near the town of Niobrara and near the confluence of the Niobrara and Missouri rivers. It is known as Niobrara Island State Park. This park is unique in that part of it is a game refuge and a bird rearing station. Fine old trees are found here in abundance, and with the Niobrara River meandering along the park and the Big Muddy nearby, the visitor finds good boating and river fishing. A lagoon through the park provides water sports and many excellent cabin sites. Excellent picnic facilities are also to be found here. What is more restful than to sit before a campfire at the end of the day, smoking away one's cares, enjoying the soothing restfulness of gathering twilight? Water, what an important part it plays in our lives. Not only is water a necessity in our daily existence, but it often provides a beautiful scene like this one. A number of excellent cabins, well furnished for campers and vacationists, are available at this park. Within several hours' drive live 250,000 Nebraska citizens. Niobrara Island Park is destined to become one of the state's favorite playgrounds. Before we leave this park on our way westward, let us pause a moment to look at the Niobrara River. Running water, the Indians called it. But here its long journey through the sandhills and tablelands of northeast Nebraska is about at an end, for shortly it will be swallowed up by the Missouri, whose broad bosom will carry it off to become a part of the sea. The Missouri River here is the boundary between Nebraska and South Dakota. Here once the Ponca and Santee Indians held forth in considerable numbers. Today, only a few remain on reservations. From Niobrara we turn westward to Brown County, first crossing vast stretches of tablelands upon which today grow abundant crops. But while we are driving along, viewing these great fields and meadows, suddenly we find ourselves dropping down into a wooded canyon. This is Pine Creek, near Long Pine, a spot which is well known to fishermen and vacationists. Viewing this creek closer, we marvel to find such cool running water, winding in and out in a beautiful valley, but a bare mile removed from level tablelands. What infinite planning to give to man such ever-changing wonders of nature. Hidden paradise, they call this tourist camp. Trout are found here, and a considerable number are taken each year. A dam in Pine Creek, built for power, provides a small lake or mill pond, which adds beauty to this charming little valley. Here we see the swimmers and divers again, though we'll make a guess that the water is rather cold. One last look at this little valley in Brown County, and we say goodbye to Long Pine, and turning our watches back an hour, we enter a typical cow country. At last we are entering the famous Nebraska sandhills, Cherry County. An empire in itself, larger than several of our eastern states, produces thousands of fine cattle upon its great ranches. Deep down among the sandy hills of this county, far from the highway, we find Snake River, a rugged canyon with imposing jutting rocks, a far-flung meandering stream. What's this? A little Niagara tucked away in this world of sand. Here the visitor can find several waterfalls, a surprise to many of us. While these falls are not large in comparison to many of the West, the fact that they are to be found in an unexpected place, and that they are off here, away from the beaten footpath of man, makes them charming indeed. Trout can be found here too, lurking in the restless water below. Here one feels close to nature, far from the noisy thoroughfares of the city. For a fleeting moment one can dream that he too was one of the pioneers who first saw this shimmering canyon. But let us leave Snake Valley, go to Valentine, journey 9 miles east, and down into the Niobrara Valley to view several little falls of an entirely different character. These are known as Smith Falls, sometimes called White Birch Falls, because of the fine birch trees growing here. These falls drop 65 feet, not angrily as do some, but in a lazy, lingering sort of way, as though reluctant to leave these fine old trees with their sheaths of white bark and leafy heights. We must return now to Valentine and see one of the 4 state fish rearing stations found in Nebraska. This is called the Valentine State Fisheries. It is located in the valley of the Minnecaduza, just below the Valentine City Park. Here each year thousands of fish are propagated, most of which find their way to the numerous lakes throughout the Sandhill region. While the drought of the past several years caused many of these lakes to dry up, some of them still remain. And here journey each summer many fishermen in search of a bag of the finny tribe. It is always a surprise to our friends in eastern states to learn that you can fish in the prairie state of Nebraska. But it's no secret with these ardent anglers. They seem to know where to go and how to turn the trick. Prairie state to the contrary. Not only are fish found in Cherry County, but real buffalo as well. Of course, these animals today must be confined in sanctuaries, but here on the Niobrara National Game Reserve, one can see these monarchs of the prairies, as our grandfathers must have seen them as they made their way westward to conquer the wilderness. And imagine finding elk browsing on the vegetation of this beautiful county, secure in the protection afforded them on the reserve and bringing a thrill to the vacationist who chances to glimpse them in such a setting. Nearly 17,000 acres are set aside here for buffalo and elk that once played such an important part in Nebraska history. From Cherry County, we will go to Nebraska's largest park, located in Dawes County, Chadron State Park. This park is in the Pine Ridge country, on pine-covered bluffs that offer the visitor a bit of Black Hills forest. Not only are pine trees found in abundance here, but also rocky formations that offer excellent views to the hiker and rider. Horseback riding is very popular in this park, and should we join one of these parties for a morning ride, we would be amazed at the landscape surrounding us. Where could one find scenery such as this? A great amphitheater, formed by nature and offered to man for the mere taking. We would canter down fine wide roads in the valley, and then, choosing a path through wooded thickets, climb up until it would seem we were literally riding over the skyline itself. Then finally come to a stop on a high cliff, from which we could look down far below into the valley from whence we had come. The view of the valley from this point is breathtaking, enhanced by the sheer drop of hundreds of feet, and we can see far below one of the shelter houses. So we ride down again, and finally approach our destination, where we set about preparing a noonday snack, cooked in the great outdoors, with the smell of pine wood in the air. What an appetite, and what a dinner! A number of cabins are also to be found in the park, and are always ready for the vacationists. The beautiful lake is a favorite spot enjoyed by thousands. Boating offers a type of pleasure all its own, and here is an ideal chance to really have those boat rides. We find wildfowl making use of the lake also, and then come upon the swimming facilities available to both adults and children, water slides for the kiddies, floats and rafts for those wishing to play about in the water, and of course diving boards. Real fun in diving from a high board into the clear, deep lake below. Truly, our Chadron State Park offers much for Nebraskans. From Chadron, we will go to Sioux County, along the Smiley Canyon Road, to see some elephants. No, not the kind you see in circuses, but great beasts that lived a few million years ago. On our way, we must pause to see the Giant's Breeches, a peculiar formation deriving its name from its appearance to an inverted pair of breeches. The Indians say a winged giant fell headlong to earth and turned to stone, and only his breeches remain. As we look at these scenes, we are greatly surprised to find we are actually seeing in the background first our neighboring state, South Dakota, and then Wyoming. What grandeur in such mountainous scenes as this, a heritage of beauty derived from the ages, which few Nebraskans realize can be seen in our state. And in this semi-mountainous region, we catch vistas of flat open country where many pastures are to be found, and thousands of cattle are raised on luxurious grasses. Next we see Crow Butte, where the Sioux Indians trapped a Crow war party, and the latter escaped by making ropes of blankets. When the Sioux rushed the butte the following morning, they found only an old man who had been left to keep the fires burning in order to fool the enemy. Next we see Saddle Rock, another landmark of northwestern Nebraska, and Giant's Coffin Rock. It seems the scouts and explorers of the early days had real imaginations. Next is Lover's Leap Rock. Legend says a disappointed Indian maiden went to her death there. And here we are at Fossil Hill, one of the richest deposits of fossils in the world. Bones of many prehistoric monsters are taken out of these excavations. Agate, famous in archaeological circles, nestles on the headwaters of the Niobrara. Here we find the museum of Captain Cook and the likeness of the famous scout and citizen of western Nebraska. From the tablelands of Sioux County, we turn southward to Scotts Bluff County, Nebraska's famous Valley of the Nile, the North Platte Valley. Just south of that prosperous valley in the Wildcat Hills, we find a state game reserve and recreational area recently opened to the public. Here can be seen the buffalo, elk, and deer in proper environment. Here are shelters and lookouts that look up at mountain passes and down on river and valley. Mitchell Pass, famous in wagon train days, is to be found here. This is one of the important landmarks in the history of pioneer days. Near the thriving city of Scotts Bluff, we find Scotts Bluff National Monument. The museum here offers the visitor much information about the westward trek of pioneers. Paintings of buffalo hunts and other early day scenes grace the museum walls, and we have photographed 2 of them to show the clarity and detail depicted of early day life. Also, countless relics tell the story of rugged years when the West was in the making. Returning to the monument sign again, we next view the Scotts Bluff National Monument. We see it first from a side view, and then we look at it from in front. This perspective gives us an idea of its size and shape. We see we are approaching a tunnel through which we must pass as we drive along the new road, recently constructed, which takes us to the top of the monument and the adequate parking space provided there. From this marvelous lookout, we see in the shimmering depths below us the city of Scotts Bluff, the metropolis of the Panhandle. We see the North Platte Valley with its thousands of acres of irrigated fields and meadows, a picture astounding us, and we begin to realize what has been done to produce such results. Our observations continue, and we see the eroded areas called by some the Badlands. They're interesting to look upon, a pathetic example of what uncontrolled water can do to land, and remind us so much of those of South Dakota. What people do we call Nebraskans? Here out of what seemed a desert, these hardy pioneers have carved out one of the richest sections of our state, a task well done, a tribute indeed to our race. Some miles down the North Platte River in Morrill County, we find some more rock formations worthy of our attention. Chimney Rock, someone has named this one, and the selection was good, we'd say. Here are 2 more rocks, but we shall tell you of them later. Morrill is a beautiful county and is noted far and wide for its great natural amphitheater. Here, Nebraska's passion play is produced in a setting unsurpassed for its calm dignity and true background for such a sacred work. Returning to our rocks, we see a fine view of Courthouse Rock, an imposing-looking structure, wouldn't you say? And then, of course, we must follow with Jail Rock. Their outlines are majestic, and such formations are odd, to say the least. Anyway, a rocky time in that jail, eh? In our trip over Nebraska, we must not neglect the southeastern section. Rock Creek Lake, owned by the state, located in Dundee County, is a good example of what can be done in impounding water in arid sections for recreational purposes. This is a fine lake, and worthy of our time as we inspect it. We find it quite large, and ideal for all the pleasures to be found around water. The Nebraska Game Commission is building such lakes as these whenever funds become available. Many fish, such as trout, bass, and crappie, are taken here, and seldom is the time when some follower of the great Isaac Walton is not either whipping its surface or rowing on its waters, casting for bass. Here is a fine spot to unlimber that rod and reel while the family picnics for the day. Above the lake, we find another fish hatchery, the Rock Creek Station. It is an interesting hatchery, as it is here that thousands of trout are hatched and distributed throughout western Nebraska each year. Yes, indeed, trout in Nebraska, and fine ones too. Many fishermen are catching their rainbows in Nebraska waters with great regularity. Here the eggs are placed in troughs, and when the baby trout are hatched, they are placed in special nurseries, some of them circular in structure, with a revolving current to give the little fellows exercise. Well, it would seem baby Homo isn't the only one to get special care and attention, but we must say goodbye to the fish and hurry on our way to another outdoor resource, trees. In the heart of the Nebraska sandhills, we continue on into Thomas County, and on land once arid and treeless, we see one of Nebraska's national forests. This beautiful scene looks like it might have been taken in the great forest lands of the north. The fire tower, rearing its head high above the trees, keeps an ever watchful eye for that scourge of the forests, fire. This is the Halsey Division and comprises many thousands of acres of trees, all planted by the hand of man. It was once believed that pine and other coniferous species of trees would not grow in the sandhills, but Dr. Bessie of the University of Nebraska believed they would, and what we see here testifies to his judgment and foresight. Here also we find a splendid recreational area set aside for public use. A great many people gather each year to enjoy the swimming pool and avail themselves of the many delightful recreational activities offered. This area, as well as a number of others throughout Nebraska, was constructed by the Civilian Conservation Corps. In the north-central part of Nebraska's second largest county, Custer County, we find Victoria Springs Park, another of those parks under state administration. A mineral spring, fine old trees, a small lake, and a museum make this a mecca for thousands of Nebraskans each year. This monument is dedicated to those pioneers who settled Custer County, and a close-up of its inscription gives us some interesting early history. Log cabins used by the earliest settlers are preserved here. No park is complete today without picnic facilities. Here we see the mineral springs, and the lake is a favorite spot, providing swimming, boating, and some fishing. Its presence enhances the beauty of the park, and we leave it reluctantly. Let us pause here in Adams County to see what our Game and Parks Commission is doing for those sections of our state which do not have natural recreational resources. This is the Hastings Recreation Grounds, near the village of Ayer, recently under construction. We find beautiful woods, paths in natural settings adorned with rustic bridges which lend enchantment to the surroundings. Here are to be found nature trails, pointing out hidden beauties as we stroll along. And of course, no park would be complete without picnic facilities. We find open clearings ready for the outdoor enthusiast, and fine shelter houses for those wishing to eat their lunch under more modern conditions. These are some of its features. And this is Crystal Lake, water where once corn grew. We find it to be a perfect lake in every detail, nicely proportioned, suitable wooded banks, and offering a pictorial beauty seldom seen on lakes of this size. Visit this lake. It is a fine example of what can be done in impounding water in Nebraska. Our next stop is in Otoe County, where we visit the home of J. Sterling Morton, the Nebraskan who gave the world Arbor Day. Here we find his statue in Arbor Lodge State Park, near Nebraska City. This monument was built by the pennies of thousands of school children. As we drive through the entrance, we see the old mansion home of the Mortons, which is today preserved as a museum and is each year visited by thousands of people from all over the world. It has a stately appeal all its own, and as we wander through the grounds, our eyes seem to cling to its pictorial beauty. President Grover Cleveland once visited here, and today we find a room named in his honor. An arboretum and stately groves also attract the visitor. Over 200 species of trees and shrubs are now growing here. The nature trail tells us of some of the many things to see, and we find a small log cabin tucked snugly away among the trees. Of course, this is a picnicker's paradise. They come here, many of them each year, to enjoy the trees. Arbor Lodge is like a poem, but poems are made by fools like you and me, and only God can make a tree. From Arbor Lodge, we will make our way to Sarpy County to visit another of Nebraska's fish-rearing stations. This hatchery is located on the bank of the Platte River, and much is to be found here. An excellent picnic grounds where one can always find cool breezes and good cold water to drink. A beauty spot, carefully landscaped, not only serves as a fish hatchery but also as a scenic resort. And here we are again, back to Lancaster County and our state capital in Lincoln. The end of our little sightseeing trip through the tree planters state. We hope in viewing these pictures that you have come to know Nebraska just a little better, and to have a finer appreciation of her history, her traditions, scenic attractions, and her great outdoors.